Alright, hello again everybody. We're back here at Skyscraper Games. I'm in the skyscrapergames.com website in the editor. And this is Quick Start Lesson 3. So if you didn't do Lessons 1 and 2, either go back and do them, or open up the Quick Start Lesson 2 file from the website. Now, you can see I've got my code here. And last time we put in these variables, X, Y, red, green, and blue. Now this time we're going to start using those variables to move this blue dot around. So I'm going to come down to this update self function, and we talked earlier about how there's a Sierra Games library. This from Sierra.SierraGame import star grabs a bunch of functions that somebody else already wrote for us, so we don't have to do it every time. And there's a function called getKey that we can use to see if the player has pressed any of the keys that this program recognizes. So the keys are W, which is up, usually, A, which is left, S, which is down, or D, which is right. So we can check if the player has pressed those and then do something if they did, using what's called a conditional statement. So a conditional statement is just usually an if statement, and that's a keyword. And then you have to provide a condition that the interpreter can check to see if that condition is either true or false. So we need to tell it it's in the Sierra library. There's a keys, and it's called getKey. And we put parentheses, and we'll say 1 left. And then at the end, we always need the colon to tell it that this is a new block of code. So if you've used Scratch and you've made code blocks, this is basically the colon tells it that we're making a new block of code. So if the user presses the key which is left, so that's the A, then we want self.x to equal self.x minus 1. That'll move us left on that horizontal scale. So now if I run it, no errors. Now if I hit A, you see my dot is starting to move to the left. Now if I go too far, I'll get an error. So for now I want to stop. And we'll see a couple things. First of all, now you can see why we made this variable, because now every time that it updates, it's checking to see if the user pressed a key, and it's moving that dot to the left. We can also see something we don't really want here, which is that the dots are staying. I actually want it to look like it's moving, so I want those other dots to go away. So there is a function called Sierra.display.setPixel. And for this one, I can just hard code this. I'll put 0, 0, 0. And I think that's what it's called. So let's see when I run this. Alright, so it's not called setPixel. So sometimes you'll get functions you can't quite remember the name of them. And there is some documentation available on the website. You can also look at like an example game and try to find the code that you want and copy it. So for instance here, alright, I've got some code here, and I want to see display. Oh, it's called clearScreen, not setPixel. Alright, so I'm going to change this to clearScreen, and I'll clear my output so I can tell if I get an error or not. Alright, so now everything seems to be running correctly. If I hit the A, see my dot starts to move. If I go too far, I'm going to get an error, so I don't want to go too far with it. And I also want to put in some additional conditions here. So I can use what's called an elif. So if it's left, then subtract 1 from x. Elif means else if Sierra.keys get key 1.right, then I'm going to add 1 to x. And you see above I put self.x equals self.x minus 1. I can also do a shortcut, self.x plus equals 1. Let me just make sure this works. Now I run, I can do A and I'll move left, I can do D and I'll move right. So you can see this code, self.x minus 1 is the same as if I just put self.x minus equals 1. And that's just a little bit shorter code. So it says the same thing as far as the interpreter or the compiler is concerned. Elif Sierra.keys.getKey 1.up. This will be my vertical scale, which is my y values. I'll do self.y minus equals 1. And then I'm just going to run this just to make sure everything's working. So if I hit W, it starts to go up. A is left, D is right. So far, so good. And then the final one I can just put else, because I don't need, but I will put an elif. I could just put else, but then I might get some things I don't expect. So I want to make sure the player actually pressed the down key. Self.y plus equals 1. And run this. I can go up with the W, left with the A, right with the D, and down with the S. Alright, so now I can move it around. Now I said earlier we'd get an error, and if I go all the way to the left and keep going, you'll see I get this uncaught undefined. If you come back for Quick Start Lesson 4, we'll add in some code that will fix that.